It's 2 o'clock Mountain Time. It's July 2nd. It's a Thursday, and Tom and Shane are on Facebook Live with our special guest star, Mike McCormick, the money guru
Money.
of Montana. Mighty Mike is here with us today. How you doing, man?
I'm spectacular. I appreciate being here. Thanks for holding my spot when I was gone last week.
Yeah, you weren't here last week. I forgot till we went on the air. I had a whole bunch of stuff for you, and boom, you weren't there.
I was a COVID refugee on the Oregon coast in a sealed facility with another part of our family. It was a great trip. Needed, everybody is feeling pretty cooped up. It felt good to sort of spread the wings a little bit, put some miles on the car.
I understand that. Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, where'd you go?
We went to the Oregon coast near Cannon Beach, and just gorgeous out there. The rainforest, the beach, the neat communities, the agriculture. It's something that, out here we have wonderful agriculture, and we're sort of used to seeing big expanses. But out there, there was hazelnut groves. There were all sorts of alfalfa, lentils, like just where you get the sense that they're really producing for the nation out there. It was neat to see.
Wow. All right. Well, we got to get our disclaimers out of the way, and then you can do yours, Mikey, because we have to take care of business here, as you well know. So
we got to fill the hour up somehow.
That's right. We got to fill this time up. So, well, what you need to know, of course, is Tom and Shane are on the air on Saturdays, 8 to 11 Mountain Daylight Time. You can hear us live at KMMSAM.com. So you'll want to go over there and check that out. You can call us. You can also text us. So we have a text line, 406-478-8298. And you can do that, of course, anytime. 24/7, 365. Shane and I will be working July 4th, as always. Of course, we're not wimps. We drink our coffee black, and we're tough. So, and of course, don't forget our app, AM 1450 KMMS. We've got our own app. You can get it at the Apple Store or Google Play. And if you can't get enough of us, of course, all our previous shows, including the ones with Mike, are online. So check that out. And, of course, if you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, rather, make sure you subscribe, comment, and like us, because YouTube looks at how many likes are these guys getting? How many comments are they getting? Maybe we should put them up a little more higher up in the, whatever. So let's hope they will. So, well, anyway, our top story, of course, the job report came out today, and of course, that's big news, Mikey. That's got to be a positive. It sent the markets up pretty high, although they're not all that high right now, but they are certainly up there. So
we've been getting great jobs numbers these past week or two.
Your disclaimer, Money Mike.
That's my compliance officer, Shane. I appreciate that very much. I am a registered investment advisor in Montana. I've got a select group of clients that benefit from full service expertise. And I'm a fiduciary, which means that I don't get commissions from any of the things that I talk about. There's no kickbacks. There's no side money. And if you're listening to the show, I really appreciate it. Love hearing the questions that you all have. Doing my best to answer them. Doing my best to promote financial literacy. Make sense of the news on what you should be paying attention to. And it's not my fault if you follow any advice that we talk about on this show. Sorry. But thanks for tuning in.
No problem. Hey, thank you, Mikey.
The thought that I was going with has to do with this jobs number. And it was another opportunity for people that are looking to buy in the market, that are looking to put that cash that they've been waiting to put in for them to plug their nose and jump in, because things are expensive. Things are very, very expensive according to some metrics. Tesla is the most valuable car company in the nation. Microsoft is the most valuable company in the world. And nobody would have predicted that we would be here. Nobody a year from now would have predicted. I don't think they would have predicted this sort of company dominance. They would have predicted that was more magnanimous, meaning that your overall portfolios would be seeing the same gains. And certainly if you throw in the idea of a pandemic, nobody would think that we're here. rates where they are. It's just one of those things to take a moment and recognize if you feel like you haven't made the smartest decisions every step of the way in your life, I think you're probably normal.
Probably so. Yeah.
Probably so.
I would say so. Well, the job numbers, of course, that's encouraging that more and more people are going back to work. That's a trigger for the economy that is a good thing, obviously.
And we saw 2.3 million jobs gained this month. We're about 11% unemployment. That is better than 30%, which was speculated. I don't know what our actual highest number measured was off the top of my head. It's interesting to think about what full employment means in phase 2 of COVID reopening, which I think is, depending on your jargon, trying to be open without being too open. And I think we're probably stuck here for a while. I don't think anybody's going to be quickly going into no restrictions full on. I think that when you think about how these things work, you'll notice that they talk about the logarithmic nature of them, how the curve steepens if it's a second wave, and how when you pass this on to somebody, it has an exponential chance of spreading. That's true with this economy, and the timing of this reopening is going to require more and more time between each one of these stages to sort of settle into what this new normal will actually look like, and is it sustainable?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
The other thing we need to point out is that with 11.5% unemployment, it's basically accepted in the economics atmosphere, in academia, that 3% is full employment. So you're really at 9%, 9.5% unemployment, and that's a remarkable number, 9.5%.
Yeah.
And Shane, I think it might even be okay to recognize that we're in an environment where we have there's a lot of the working force that's not working, obviously 11%, and that component of it is likely not to come back for a while. And so for those people, what is their impact on the economy? Where are we seeing it affect people's investments? And for those individuals, what are their options for moving forward? Those are the real questions that we're scratching our head right now on how to answer. But when you take a step back and you've got an economy that is the size of the U.S., when you've got people that are positioned how we are and the way the Fed is positioned, the stock market's saying that 11% unemployment is okay. It's saying that we can still make money investing at that level. And maybe there's some opportunity for companies to, as they get back on board, to become more healthy.
We just got exclusive here that the Manson family killer, Bobby Beausoleil, denied parole for the 20th time. He is charged with killing, who did he kill? I'll get it in a minute. Gary Hinman, the musician Gary Hinman, but he was one of the Manson family folks. So I'll just put that in for whatever. Denied parole for the 20th time. So even though he says he's changed completely, I don't kill people anymore.
Even in prison.
Yeah. So,
not sure how to segue off of that one.
I don't know. There's no way to, Well, we can talk about bankruptcy. Let's do that. MPC International, largest franchise in the U.S. They got 1,600 Wendy's and Pizza Huts. Filed for Chapter 11, and a little news on them. They operate 1,200 Pizza Huts, 400 Wendy's. They filed in Texas bankruptcy court, and most of it is due to the poor performance of Pizza Hut. Domino's and Papa John's are thriving, and Pizza Hut is struggling to grow some same-store sales, and so they're going to look at, and the COVID virus, of course, with dining and all of that has hurt as well. And so they're going to restructure under Chapter 11 and see what's going on. So
it's interesting to see a company like that declare bankruptcy at this time. It has a diverse portfolio. It has access to private capital. It's not publicly traded. And so they've got flexibility, and so this is a business decision is the gist.
I was going to say, you've got two national chains there that are pretty successful for, in the grand scheme of things. You would think they could acquire some financing or whatever. Obviously, a Chapter 11 for people that don't understand bankruptcy laws. The creditors are held at bay, and you're restructuring. You're putting yourself back together.
You're asking for some time. You said, "Hey, time out. Everybody should be able to get paid, but we got some real problems here, and we need legal protection from what you're trying to make us do." Chapter 7 is the one where they just throw their hands up and grab the leftover printer paper and run out the door with the paper clips too.
Right. Yeah.
Tom, it'd be interesting. We don't get reports on this in a local community, and the numbers for small businesses overall as a nation are really difficult to see and hard and very delayed. I have not seen or heard of a lot of bankruptcies or any bankruptcies occurring in my area, and I can't believe that really, because the way that restaurants are looking right now, to me,
kind of current bankruptcies 843,665, and I don't know whether that's up or down.
You want to see that
bankruptcies. I mean, that's less than the population of Montana, so that seems a little light. And now I don't know again if those are personal bankruptcies or whether they're business bankruptcies. But I assume they're personal.
Yeah. I mean, you can track. You have to notice this stuff in the local paper. So the Bozeman Chronicle is sadly a place where dirty laundry, skeletons, and the like get to be put on parade out there, and of course be sensitive and understanding. But you can get a sense for how the economy is doing locally in the newspaper in the old days, anyways, because you could look at two things. You could look at the public bankruptcies that everybody needs to notice. If you as an individual are going bankrupt or your company, you need to notice it in the local paper so that people that might have a claim to some of your money get a chance to claim it. And then the corollary to that is also in the paper, as you see the classified one ads. You get to see what the jobs are in the local community and how vibrant it is, because even in this day of Craigslist and whatnot, if you're really looking to get eyeballs and you have a budget to do so in a strong economy, it's going to end up also in the local paper. And I'm still seeing a lot of construction jobs there, and I'm not seeing any uptick in the personal bankruptcy numbers. And again, local construction projects, haven't seen anything stalled out. It's full steam ahead for everything. And so and personally, I have not been affected by COVID either. So it's one of these weird things that I think we're all in, is that you get to live parts of your life thinking things are kind of normal and pretty good. And then you turn the news on and you're reminded that, of course, there's plenty to worry about.
Shane, you were going to make a point.
The point I was just going to make is that Pizza Hut is a wholly owned subsidiary of Yum Brands, which is public.
Thank you.
I'm sure that if International is interested in selling assets to cover their $1 billion in debt, they'll go to Yum Brands to buy their 1,400 stores. And then the 400 Wendy's is a wholly owned subsidiary of none other than Berkshire Hathaway. So, of course, they have the capital and cash on hand to make any deal with the company to buy those stores. So I would be surprised unless certain stores in that group of stores owned by International find themselves closed because of the nature of the two principal companies from which their stores come from.
Mm-hmm. There's a Wall Street Journal dated June 4th says that corporate bankruptcies, U.S. courts reported 722 businesses nationwide filed for Chapter 11, yearly increase of 48% of, I guess that's year over year. In 2019 rather, 487 filed for bankruptcies, which lets corporations resolve their financial problems and continue operating, as we mentioned earlier. So that's the numbers, I guess, between the personal and the business bankruptcies, if you want to believe the Wall Street Journal.
Right. Caveat.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we talked about Tesla earlier, and I don't know. This company just keeps, I don't know. Nothing affects it, Mike.
Well, valuation is not popular right now. Being popular is popular right now.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that, to invest in a company, I like to see that they make money reliably and have extra left over at the end of the year. That methodology is not popular, which is normal, and it's how booms occur. It's also leads up to busts, and so all the chatter is really at what is the level, what's the threshold, when is the music going to stop, and when the music stops, what sort of options are there? Is it going to be an elevator floor drop that just gets worse and worse, and things look more and more dismal? And that's possible. I think that with coronavirus second wave, it's possible. I think with a change in leadership, with poor messaging about upholding economic successes is possible. And then, of course, there's other unknowns out there. What we're seeing is that people still are wanting to get in this market, and we're seeing that demand is outstripping supply. I think that if you look at something like Tesla, people are just seeing something I don't see. I think that's a warning sign, honestly, and it's a sign to be shifting into, if everybody's doing this, what are people not doing, and are those the things that are right for me? That's what the commentators are saying too. This is not rocket science.
Yeah. Mike, do you think Tesla is, they've got their hands in so many pies that, but no real success in any of them. They haven't met most of their car predictions. A few of them they have. But they got the trailer truck, they got the space program, they've got the cars. I just saw a news item. He wants to get into the COVID vaccine situation. Is he like a whole bunch of icebergs? You're just seeing the tips of them, and there's a whole bunch of crap underneath, or what?
Well, clearly he's very clever. Has a different way of doing things.
Yeah,
and has some success. Shane's pointed out frequently how his precursor to the Venmo, all the money transactions, he's done great, and he's done great with the car company. He's done great in terms of the numbers. You see more rolling around the streets. He's done even better with positioning this as something to admire and demand. And COVID, I mean, it's a luxury item. I look at them, I think they're beautiful. It's different, but not too different. There's so many different ways car companies have failed in trying to be different, and I think he hit it on the head. On my road trip, we were following a Tesla SUV for quite a while, and everybody was sort of oohing and ahhing. And my daughter's, "Dad, where are the handles to the doors?" And whoa, look at that. And they, the driver could not be driving, and he could be getting there. And so I think it's easy to see that the future is now, and it's a great time to be investing in the future and who's going to be around in the future. And it's technology, and it doesn't seem to be Ford coming out with a newly redesigned F-150. It doesn't seem to be any of the lesser manufacturers, I would say, either. Certainly, we all need to drive cars, but when you see California making mandates for all their truck fleet needs to be 100% EV. I think in 30 years is what I read. They're making promises and driving the market in this direction. And of course, for GM, everybody's working like crazy to copy Tesla, to put something together that's a competitor. And they should be able to do it more efficiently. They should. They've got the manufacturing, they've got the supply chain, they've got the distribution networks, they've got it all. They just don't have the bling. And right now, this is a market where the bling leads. In fact, Tesla does not have a profitable company. Their earnings per share are negative 0.81 cents. That is purely a speculative growth company.
But I was going to say they're kind of it's blue sky.
Yeah, right.
Sort of.
I mean, it's a promise of the future. It's a promise.
Yeah,
it's a promise of being profitable in the future. Their market cap is $250 billion, and their PE ratio is not calculable. You can't calculate it because they don't make any money. But when you bring up Microsoft, you've got a price to earnings ratio of 34. And that is up from a reasonably acceptable average of 21. So they're rolling at a 70% premium right now, if you ask me. But they do have profits, and so they make $6 per share. Their market cap is 1.5 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to think. Oh, that's only about 10 Teslas. If I did my math correctly, 4, 8, and 2, somewhere in there. It's crazy to think that Tesla can be this big. I would bet that the short positions in Tesla right now are significant, because all he needs to do is go on and have another pot smoking moment to put people back on their heels on this one.
Yeah. No, well,
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Make my comment. April 30th, 2020, not long ago, right in the middle of COVID, they announced for the first time 9 cent per share profit. The market was expecting a loss of 32 cents a share per profit, so they are profitable. Their year-over-year sales went from 3.72 billion in the first quarter of 2019 to 5.13 billion in 2020, and they grew 22.5% in the fourth quarter to 25.5% during the first quarter. There's another aspect of the company that has to be mentioned, and that is he has a nice little side deal going with other automakers, and he earned $354 million from earning pollution credits from legacy automakers who paid him for his pollution credits. So I think the only thing that he has a difficulty with was being shut down by force. And as we all know, he told the state of California he was going to reopen its manufacturing. He has a back orders of, up to 16 months at least with regard to his production, which he's trying to accelerate because it's all automated, and he's the first to do that. So no, I think Elon Musk is brilliant, and his SpaceX has nothing to do with Tesla, Tom. It's a totally separate company, as is his company called the Brick Company. Go read about it. Remarkable company. As is his drilling or tunnel company, which is separate and owned by him wholly. So yeah, guy's remarkable. Probably one of the greatest capitalists of this century, certainly, as he ages, and probably will end up rivaling the greats of the last 20th century, including Ford. So yeah, no, I think Tesla's an amazing company. Price of the stock is predicated on supply and demand. Talked about this numerous number of times, and the common share structure of the companies. So that's my 2 cents worth with regards to Tesla.
Okay.
Would you? I mean, you're not an investment advisor. I can ask you. Is that a buy right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Bruce says hi, Mike. Sandy says hi. Jim's here. Linda's here. So yeah, got the usual suspects hanging around. So we appreciate that. And Mike's here with us, of course. And yeah, regarding Tesla and some of the other things, when I talk about, I don't want to imply he owns all these things outright. Some
He
things
does.
they're separate companies, but I mean
They're separate companies. How many owns them outright? Oh, by the way, there's 1.8 billion shares out on Tesla, which is why the market's so tight on the price.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's complicated tracking ownership, as we just saw with NPC that you led off with. Yum Brands claims Pizza Hut, as does NPC that declared bankruptcy. They both say that they own it.
Well, they don't. That's just not true. I mean,
I just went to both their websites, and they both said they did. Now, it's a partnership. One operates it, one owns, one finances it. It's complicated.
Yum Brands owns Pizza Hut, and a percentage of them are wholly owned, and the other are licensed owners, like in the case of National Brands.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Jim says, according to the debt clock, U.S. federal debt ratio in 1960, 52%. In 1980, 34. 2000, 57. Today, it's 132.50. Do you guys look at these numbers? Well, we just talked about them earlier. Before you got here, Jim, maybe we should go back and revisit that. One of the things, of course, that Shane pointed out is that the bulk of the money we owe to ourselves. Japan's our largest. Japan owns us, I guess. They replaced China from owning us. China's moved into second place with their trashy economy. But yeah, we pay attention to the numbers. And my theory on the numbers is when Shane and I went off the air, I think our debt ratio was something like 106%. And people were screaming about that. But all of a sudden, Congress says, hey, you know what? Let's just put $3 trillion in the economy. What do you say, guys? Let's do this. All right? Yeah, we'll just pull the money out of thin air. We got $3 trillion here. We'll just start paying everybody $600 or $700 a week for the next couple of months, and everything will be hunky dory and no problem at all. So, you tell me if they're concerned about the numbers or not. Have you heard one presidential candidate, mention the debt at all? Have they said, we've got to do something about the debt? No, not a single one. They're talking about how, we're bounties on Russian shooting or Afghan shooting soldiers, or they're talking about COVID, or they're talking about Occupy Seattle or whatever, but they're not talking about debt. So you tell me, is it important or not?
Shane, do you want to go after this one? I know you guys. I don't want to.
No, please, no. I pretty much people have an idea of where I stand on this.
I mean, the tongue-in-cheek answer is that we're worth more today, and so therefore we can carry more debt because we're going to make more in the future. That's the tongue-in-cheek method. It's relative, and it's really hard to. I'm big on analogies and anecdotes, but it's basically like if you're on a road trip and everybody's got a certain amount of money for the road trip, and then you go gambling and you run out, or different people run out at different times. Which person there is going to be able to borrow the money? Who's got the most credit? And that amount of credit is going to depend on how much money is available. It's not necessarily going to depend on the credit worthiness of the person, because there's one guy that drove. We had a friend who was Mormon. He was our designated driver. He was the most credible of any of us. We'd loan him all of our money. He had the most credit. In today's world, the U.S. is number one, and we're recognizing that our credit limit is a lot greater than we've ever tested. It might be circumstantial to today's economy. It might be that we always had this ability to borrow from the future, and we just never did it. I think it's because of a function of how the economy is functioning today, the maturity of the foreign exchange markets, the maturity of the debt markets, the ability that we have now to have full-scale employment between women and men and kids and boomers. And I think it's also to the point that we could be right at the end of our rope, but we don't know. It's the unknowable out there. There's no world police on this. We're making the rules up as we go. And is it of concern to me? Absolutely. I think that it's something that, like all things in this economy, if they don't correct gradually, they'll correct sharply. And sharply is not good for most people. Where do I think we should go for this? I think that so long as we're able to maintain this level of open for the economy, I think we got this. And I'm not putting debt as a concern out there right now. I'm not putting inflation as a concern out there at this time. And so the rebalancing that we're doing for quarterly management of investment accounts, it's getting more aggressive for equities. It's being more cautious about bonds. We don't see the Fed raising rates on the short end. We don't see the demand for treasuries stemming. We see that company valuations will continue to drift higher, is the word that we use. And we're seeing that it's a lot more comfortable to go into a value stock that's got a proven track record of making good income than it is to catch a high flyer. But if you don't include some high flyers in there, you might be going through some meetings with clients that are saying, why aren't I making as much money as what I hear about on Jim Cramer at the end of the day? And that's the truth, is that you need to have some money at risk. And maybe we're going into a new world of the technology age, and it's okay to value tech companies at fanciful values that we haven't ever before supported. I'm not a fan of saying this time it's different. I'm a fan of saying everything reverts to its mean, but probably takes longer to get there than you think.
All right. That's my
story.
Yeah. I think the last time we were debt free is 1850, if I remember correctly. Last time we paid off the national debt. Jim says, "Booyah!" Thanks, Mike.
Booyah!
Right, booyah!
Booyah.
All right, we're going good.
Now, you as an individual can be debt free.
That's true.
And given the low interest rates right now, that's not normally recommended. And that's why rates are low. Is it wants to tempt people into taking risk. It wants to tempt them to say, oh my gosh, I can refinance my house again, and I can get more cash out of it and pay the same payment, and I can come up with $30,000. And then with that $30,000, I could, A, buy a boat. I don't think you should do that. Yeah. But B, you could put a down payment on a place that a loved one might live in, or it could be a rental. Or you could invest in Tesla, which I don't recommend at these levels. And I certainly don't recommend leveraging real estate to go ahead and invest in stocks. That's not normal.
Well, Shane and I had a question this morning. We were filling in for Aaron Flynn about the stock market going up and down during the day. The guy said I need to take Dramamine because it starts out good in the day, and then it goes down, then it goes back up, then it goes down. I don't know.
I think that's really more of a function of people paying attention in the news flow, because the market's been this volatile always, and that's the beauty and the uniqueness of this. But I have clients that don't pay attention because I frequently recommend that for certain parts of their accounts, and they wait for me to call and they say, "How are we doing?" And this morning I said, "Well, in 12 months we're up. It was 5.6% for this portfolio." Mm-hmm. And I said, you remember when we met 12 months ago, we thought things were kind of expensive, and we projected maybe a growth rate of about, between 4 and 6% for this particular portfolio. And here we are. So, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
and of course, we've gone to hell and back since then, and we might be on our way to one or the other again now too. But people's individual experiences are what dictate behaviors, because emotions are so strong. And paying attention to how the market opens, I think in any environment, paying attention to how the market opens is foolhardy. I try not to trade during the first half hour of the market ever, unless there was something that was pretty clear. Just because it's sort of like I always say, when you have icy roads, take your hands and put them on the wheel and don't change lanes. Just keep it going straight. But it's interesting to watch how the news flow happens. And as you pointed out, Tom, we had great news in the morning, and it gave a little pop. And now we're pulling back to saying, wait a minute, we just banked our biggest number of COVID infections in a day. We've got an average stock market valuation at a 22 PE. Last time we hit this high and didn't have a bubble burst. Well, that bubble has always burst, but it was the .com and then the Great Recession. We haven't sustained a PE level of this high anytime. And we've got an election coming. I mean, that one.
All of last year, people were talking the R word. We everything's too high. Everything's overvalued. We got to have a recession. And
on this show, all three of us said, no, we're not done yet. The consumer is just getting some strong legs and wage increases, and the consumer is 70% of the economy. And so that's why they did the first checks of stimulus and why the Fed came in so strong. And, where we go from here is it's a pretty common dance that we're about to do. We're going to have bad news, unfortunately, probably in the form of COVID, but it could come in the form of China, could come in the form of jobs reports, could come in the form of something that we haven't talked about. The market's going to sell off, and we're going to have a lot of bearish news and a lot of scary times. I don't know where and how fast it's going to sell off to. I'm not getting that memo. And then we're going to have the Fed come out, the government come out, and Congress come out, and they're going to say, hey, here's our next offering to appease your concerns. Yeah. And it'll probably be sufficient, and we'll probably float back up to where we were. And overlaid in that, there's going to be some scary election stories, depending on for every side. And then there's going to be some adjustment to whatever happens in the election, because I think it's going to be unknown enough to try and say that we're going to have a winner, and the bets are being made based upon that at this point in time. There's enough uncertainty on both sides. And so, it's going to end up, of course, like Tom and I always say, is it doesn't matter who's in office, but it's going to be a hell of a 2-year ride before we get there. And it might be that the Democrats want to undo all the small business incentives. I don't think so. I think that money. I think money works just as well on politicians of any color. That's just my cynical view of the day.
Okay. Sounds good to me, I guess.
Tesla has a 1.3% market share. I'm not sure how the heck they calculate that, because I don't feel like I see that in the streets that much. But
Jim says, why couldn't the banks this year give you a year off and just put the 12 months on the back? Whatever, it doesn't change anything. They don't have to charge interest. They just make the note 12 months longer. Well, if they make the notes 12 months longer, they're going to give you 12 months more interest too.
He's got a good point, really, Tom, because the way that interest rates are lower, everybody has the opportunity to renegotiate their debt. Mm-hmm. And the banks have the ability to actually benefit. If you say, I want to take a year off, but I'll pay you for another year, nobody's going to take that deal, right? Because there's a present value of money. You're going to either have to pay for, 2 more years if I give you a year off, then we can talk. Or pay a higher amount. Mm. But it is common right now for people to go to their banks and say, things are tight. First of all, things can't be bad.
Yeah.
But they can be, tight, and the bank's going to work with you. And they might be able to work with you in some surprising ways to renegotiate and refinance. And it's no different than refinancing your mortgage, grabbing a whole new 30-year period at a new rate. You paid a ton of fees you didn't even see because they amortize it over a course of another 30-year loan. I don't recommend it. I like people paying off debt, and if you don't have the discipline to pay off debt, you need to find it. You need to find some joy in watching those numbers go down. because that's behavior that's going to work.
Will certainly pay off debt that you have a higher interest rate than your home loan on.
Yeah.
Credit cards, if you got a car loan, get rid of that, whatever. Because those are way too high to stretch out over time. You double pay your car payment, or whatever.
Well, you got to understand there's different kinds of debt. The first criteria, is it secured or not secured? Is it collateralized? Meaning a car, a house, a boat. Those are real things that if you don't pay, they can take and they can sell. And sometimes they come on wheels, which makes it even easier. But if it is a revolving line of credit, like a credit card, payday loan, things where they're just taking you at your promise, and most commercial loans are viewed this way too. There's a whole different metric and framework for how they structure that debt. And for the people that need to know, it's easy to understand. For the people that want to know, it's easy to go into your local bank and sit down with your banker. They'd love to tell you about how things work and what it would look like if you refinanced. But the most expensive kind of debt is going to be the riskiest kind, which is the kind that's not secured by your house or your car or something tangible that they can take if you don't pay it. And so recognize that, home debt is one of the few spots that we recommend you consolidate and say, okay, we'll do a cash out refinance, pay off all our credit cards, own our cars because they're depreciating assets, and you will financially potentially benefit from doing that.
Yeah. Mike, what are you hearing about reverse mortgages?
I don't hear a lot about reverse mortgages, and here's why, because they're not that popular. Is the first reason, and the second reason is they're not popular with the sort of people that I work with. It is a specialized product that can be the right way to go for people, but it is mostly a way for people in financial services to make more money off of you. And financial services would be insurance, financial advising, appraisals, and real estate loans. I mean, you get everybody in the room and they cook up this idea that, hey, we can keep you in your home, and we're all going to make sure that we're not going to lose on this deal, and we've got a deal for you. I think that it's always better to look at all your options before you do that, and then find people you can trust. But in the right circumstance, a reverse mortgage can work fine. Just the same way an annuity can work well in the right circumstance. But generally, if you want to be a simple meat and potatoes type of investor, they're not easy, they're not simple, and they're not cheap.
Yeah. Well, reverse mortgages, from what I understand, have a pretty good hefty fee at the beginning, to cover some of the bank.
Yeah, and let's just clarify, a reverse mortgage, the idea is that you want to get a life lease on your house. You don't want to have to move. You want to be able to own it until you pass. And then when you pass, it gets sold and the money is already spoken for. Yeah. And so you get some guarantees about how long you're able to stay there. And there's a risk of how long you're going to live that's assumed by somebody else. That's a life insurance company that needs to do that. There's a promise of being paid tomorrow for money that you're getting today. There's a bank that needs to be involved in how to do that. There's financing expenses. And so you can see that there's some significant risks. And when you contract those away, when you say, I don't want this risk, I want to make sure that I can, period, blank, you have to pay for that service. And because people can live a really long time, you might be paying a fair bit.
Let's talk a little bit about Amazon, because there's a secret memo out that they're going to delay their Prime Day, which is a big day for them. A lot of Prime specials going on, and they're not sure whether the suppliers can supply what they need and get it to the customer. So.
Well, that just makes sense, right? I mean, there's a logistical problem. We all we all see the trucks driving around, and they're today's yellow cabs is what they are, really. When you see one coming, you just sort of get out of the way and give them their room. You know, it might be your package they're bringing over to you. They're always pretty friendly people, whether it's the guys in brown or the FedEx or the postal workers too.
Yeah.
And we're all happy to see them. Santa's driving around all the time, but we're already seeing, I'm sure at your house it's similar too, is that, you know, if you're ordering something, sometimes you look at the fine print and it says, whoa, we might not see this for a while. And is it because demand's so high? Is it because we've got China supply challenges because of the tariffs? Is it because of COVID? And the answer is yes. It's all those. They're all here. It's all now.
All of it at once. Yeah, the wife gets so much stuff from Prime and FedEx and UPS. She just puts her first name on it. That's all she needs to. She doesn't need the address or anything. Just send it to Janet, and everybody knows where to take it.
I mean, it's beautiful, really, right? It's amazing.
Yeah.
That it works as well as it does. Think about all the different little widgets that show up, and I'm always fascinated when two of them are in the same box, because that means that it was these two disparate things, you know, a cheese slicer and a book or something like that. You know, they're in the same warehouse. They got to put in the same box.
There we go. Yeah, it's amazing. They can go get everything off the shelf somehow and put it in a box and put that bubble stuff in it, and away you go.
Yeah, I've got a client, and we're investigating REITs and potential individual investment into warehouses and interchanges, because goods have always moved around, right? But this new method of them moving it creates new demands and new types of spaces and new distribution networks that seem to require more in the way of warehouse storage for intermediary distribution. And there's real estate uncertainty right now. Real estate investment trusts, you know, we're talking about rentals in this 2 weeks ago. I think we can still talk about commercial real estate. If you're looking at the broad metric, the Vanguard Real Estate Index Fund, VNQ, year to date, it's down. It's down 12% year to date. It does pay a dividend of 4%. But that reflects what the real value of real estate has taken in aggregate. This is hospitals, shopping malls, JCPenney stores, and big commercial buildings. In aggregate, it's down 12%. Well, it's down about what the unemployment rate is. Easy metric.
Yeah. Well, the other thing on Amazon that we need to talk about briefly is that they're buying third-party businesses. The most expensive one, I think, they bought from somebody who just sells stuff on Amazon which I do. I sell my books on Amazon, and they bought it for $30 million.
Well, that's the model that we've seen work. They didn't invent that model.
No, they didn't. Yeah.
Costco's Kirkland brand is designed to find profitable product ideas that they can clone and make the money from. Mm-hmm. So it's been telegraphed with Amazon as well, and it's one of the things that the antitrust people squeal about in terms of breaking up Amazon. And that's an interesting topic that Shane's weighed in on, especially with the social media platforms. But it is likely that Amazon is developing a monopoly and supplying us with everything. And certainly we're going to pull a page right out of the Standard Oil program and do something about it. We don't know when. Probably not in this environment.
I don't know. Shane, you're awful quiet.
No, I'm listening. I'm learning.
Okay. Well, my wife has pointed out, since she watches the off-the-wall channels that have Law and Order and Blue Bloods and NCIS and all that stuff, reruns, and, you know, the crime shows and everything, and she's noticed that a lot of advertisers now are adding on their ad, not available at Amazon.
Well, I think if anything, that's a sign of of dominance and concern over being, forced to use Amazon as their only distribution outlet.
Well, or don't go to Amazon because you'll find about 100 products that are similar to mine and they're cheaper.
That could be it too. That could be it too. And it makes sense. It's today's version of buying local. I went this morning. I had to get a gift for the nice people that family members that we share their house out in the Oregon coast with. And he's an avid cyclist. And I got a friend that runs a cycling clothing company called 11 Pine. And I knew that he'd make more money if I just went directly to his site and I didn't even bother shopping Amazon, but they probably have the same thing at the same price that he's forced to give Amazon their pound of flesh. So today's version of shopping local is typing local, going direct to that website. The checkouts are made a lot easier than they used to be. So I'm okay with it. There's always going to be a market for it. But at the end of the day, if we're really talking about how, you want to have that Target experience where you can get a waste bin, some new bedding, and shop for all your groceries in one click, it's still going to be Amazon that's in charge of all that.
Yep, pretty much so. Well, Mike, I know you have a history in oil and gas and all of that stuff, oil particularly, and so we need to talk about that because Goldman Sachs is predicting a 30% increase in oil in the coming months. What do you think?
Well, it's got nowhere to go but up, would be what I have to say about it.
Do we have a glut of oil right now?
Well, I don't at my house. I just fill up what I need, and we're about half full on the lawnmower tank right now. But in terms of do we have a glut of production? Yes. However, it is an elastic situation, and by elastic it means that people don't like losing money. People have a choice to produce less so that in the future they can make more. There is still this organization referred to as OPEC, formerly known as OPEC, new OPEC, OPEC Plus. They've got some influence in things. The market is really the main influencer of it all. But if we're back to stock levels at this level that indicate that we're going to have this level of economic, the stock market's a predictor of the future. It's usually wrong, but nonetheless, that's what people are betting on. And over the long term, it's right. And they're predicting that things are going to be pretty good. We've got 11% unemployment, and that's mostly consisting of concert ushers, restaurant servers, unfortunately, people that are generally not in the higher income spending bracket that are going and buying new Teslas. And so things are looking okay. And when you look at okay, you look at people and goods moving around. You look at consumption going back to buying all the same plastic goods that we always buy. You're looking at some level of normalcy in an industry that's extremely mature. And that elastic production means that they can turn things off. It's easier to turn things off than it is to open back up. So they're going to always err to the downside on that. And prices are going to be allowed to come back up a certain amount before the demand occurs. Am I investing in oil right now? Yeah, we're considering it as a short-term grab the bump sort of play. If we hold these stock market levels, we're going to watch other companies float up to overvalued, and companies in financials and energy, which are historically undervalued right now, still especially in energy, might just have some pushback to at least their fair valuations that we'll see.
Okay. This just in, Hugh Downs, who became one of television's most familiar faces with more than 15,000 hours on news, game shows, and talk shows, dies of natural causes at age 99. You're old enough to remember Hugh Downs? Boy, yeah.
Exxon has a 7.5% dividend right now. Chevron, which has been much more popular in the past decade, is looking at a 6% dividend. Chevron's significantly higher. Exxon is really in the tank at a 1.5 billion market cap. That's unbelievable. Oh, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong number here. That's U.S. Steel. $1.5 billion for U.S. Steel's market cap. What do you think about that, Shane? That's historic right there. Good God. Exxon's a tenth of Microsoft almost. Good grief. $186 billion. You can buy all of Exxon. And what did I say? Tesla was $250 billion. Yeah. Tesla's valued higher than Exxon right now. I'd rather own Exxon. Call me old-fashioned. Call me old-fashioned.
But it gets back to common shares. There's 8 billion shares out on Microsoft, so it's way overvalued. And you look at Tesla with 1.8, they split their stock 4 for 1 to come close to the number of shares that Microsoft has out, and all of a sudden their stock is $400. So I mean, the cap value.
Give our listeners a little snapshot of what you mean by outstanding shares versus the market cap number valuation that I'm throwing out there.
Well, I'm talking about a company has 2 types of shares. They can issue common shares or preferred, and the common shares are the number of shares they have outstanding. And as I said, in the case of Microsoft, it's over 8 billion shares. So you have to be careful of your evaluation, because you multiply the price of the number of shares out times what it's trading at to get a market cap value. That isn't anywhere near what the cash flow or necessarily the outstanding assets of that company are worth.
I understand your point.
Exxon has a much greater value than its cap, than its market cap share. They have much more substantial value in assets and the vertical integrated industry that they find themselves in. So, and they're planning for the future. They're doing a lot and spending a huge amount of money planning for the future in anticipation of less oil. So they're making their own transition, which really they don't expect to have done until 2035. So that's how far in advance that they're looking.
Yeah. Well, they're also looking at algae too, which they're not.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, things as like algae, yes.
Yeah. Well, there a lot of people are speculative as to whether or not that's a smart move or not. I don't know, but I mean, a lot of people are questioning them putting too many eggs in that particular basket.
Well, they've only invested $500 million in it, and they've already come up with a product that's viable and works, and it's selling. The problem is that it's not cost effective. So supply and demand always resolves the cost effective price of something.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's finish up. As Mike mentioned earlier, we got 52,788 new cases recorded on Wednesday, a new record. Fauci, Little Anthony, and the Imperialists believe we're going to have 100,000 cases a day in the near future. Maybe not. I don't know. I guess these rising numbers should trigger some people to be a little more careful in their daily life. I would hope. I don't know.
Well, when you look at those charts, and you see these curves, they do create a pretty predictable trend, and this trend appears to be the second wave trend, and we're hoping that we get to a level of occurrence that is somewhat sustainable as we try to muddle through life and opening the economy and finding a cure. And we saw Pfizer have a big bump yesterday, having some success with a drug, but the cure, you'll know it when you know it, kind of thing. Where are we going from here? We're seeing California pull back on some of its opening restrictions. What's going to be the impact of the economy on that? Yeah. We're going to see more bankruptcies. We're going to see more main streets hurting. But I think that we're going to see continued gains in the stock market because we've got the money looking for a spot. Demand, just like in Bozeman for housing, demand is more than supply. And that's the game that we have today. All
right, guys. We're getting close to the end of the program here.
Appreciate the listeners and questions today. That helps, makes it fun, helps us know that we're on track. I do think that now is a great time to reach out to your accountant. I always put your accountant as one of your best financial advisors out there. They have time, not a lot, but they have some, and they're probably lonely because they are probably, quarantining in their office, not seeing people. Call them up, make sure that they're okay with meeting you if you want to meet in person. But things have changed. We're still settling into this new tax law that Trump passed last year. And we've got these subsidies and stimulus, new rates. It's a great time just to take a litmus test and see if they've got any input. Because when it's tax time, they're looking in the rearview mirror. And everybody needs a good advisor. They are fiduciaries, your accountants like myself. And they're in your corner. So I urge you to give them a call and tell them a hi.
All right.
Yeah, and my good message for the day, which we covered this morning when we were on, Tom, was that the death rate in the United States is 2,813,000 people annually. So that's about 863 deaths per 100,000. Cancer deaths last year 600,000, 599,108. Heart disease 647,000. Unintentional injuries like accidents 169,000. Stroke 143,000. Alzheimer's 121,000, and diabetes 83,000. And that doesn't include COVID H1N1, which was 64,000. So yeah, the numbers are staggering, but enough of this already. Yes, 105,000 is terrible. Every life that passes is not one. Death is for the living. It's not for the dead. So let's just acknowledge death and sort of quiet down a bit, because there's far greater numbers in other diseases in the U.S. than COVID-19. It's not being rational from an economic standpoint. It's not being rational from a civilized standpoint. And 100 to 200,000 a year from a COVID going on because it's a virus like H1N1, and or other diseases. Should not be unexpected, but it shouldn't be dealt with in such a calamity of errors. So hopefully we'll get there. The American public will wake up to these realities, and hopefully more people talk about it like we do.
Amen. All right. Any final thoughts, Mike, before we go?
Be careful about how time passes, because it is passing. It is, unfortunately, feels like it's slipping by. If there's something that you wish you would have done, get going on it. And if we can help, give us a ring. I'd love to hear from anybody that's a fan of the show, and help if there's a way that I can.
All right. All right, man. Thanks a lot. Hey, reminder quickly before we say goodbye. Tom and Shane, of course, on the air. We are on the air Saturday. We will be on this Saturday, July 4th. We will have a July 4th parade. I don't know if you know this, Mike. They're tearing Mount Rushmore down. They're going to put it on a float. It'll be in our parade on Saturday, so that you don't have to go to Mount Rushmore to see it. It'll be traveling down, and the Gold Bowl. It's on a revolving, so everybody can see it. So yeah, we got it on a flatbed trailer, and you'll be able to see it there. Of course, the Black Lives Matter float, and all of that. So anyway, that's going to be Saturday, 8 to 11, Mountain Day.
Don't miss it. It is the best parade of the year. Lots of candy being thrown out. Yeah. Watch out for the water balloons. I caught one of those once.
That's right. Lots of guys in white vans, are there for the candy. That's it. So don't forget about our app. We got an AM 1450 KMMS app. Get it at the Apple Store or Google Play. You'll be glad you did. And if you need to listen to our previous shows, they're all at KMMSAM.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, by all means, subscribe and like us, because everybody wants to be like Mike, so you got to like Mike.
Appreciate it. Yep.
And there we are. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks, Mike, for being here. And as always, say goodbye, Shane.
Yes, be happy to be safe, live in the moment, live to work, and God bless the people of the United States and Canada And thank goodness we all live in the two best country clubs in the world.
Yes, we do. All right. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Mike, for being here. Thanks, everybody from Facebook checking us out. We really appreciate that. Thanks for supporting the show. And hey, all views are welcome here. And if you think it there, we'll say it here. So we'll see everybody, I guess, on Monday, huh? Except for our parade on Saturday. So.
And I'll be back next Thursday. Everybody, happy 4th.
That's right. Yeah. All right. Bye for now.